All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. This is Justin Coletti of Sonic Scoop here live in the flesh or the virtual flesh with Mr. Jimmy Douglas, true living legend of the music production world. He has been at it since the 1970s, and he has just presented a live premiere of a masterclass he did with us for MixCon. Super thrilled to have him here. Jimmy, thanks so much for joining us, and thanks so much for that masterclass.
My pleasure. My pleasure. That was fun watching.
All right, sweet. We got tons of great comments during the live premiere. We have tons of great questions already lined up. I want to give a quick shout out and thanks to a couple of folks. Number one, Jimmy, who I just thanked. Also, a big shout out and thanks to Dirty Projectors, letting us go under the hood of this remix of their track, and Ms. Poppins, protege of Jimmy, who did the original remix, and Jimmy kind of deconstructed and almost remixed that remix to a degree, adding some of his own flavor to it in the mix. So we're going to talk a lot about his process, his approach. We have this scheduled to be a 30-minute live Q&A. We're going to try to get through as many questions as we can. I know Jimmy's a busy guy. If he wants to stay longer, I won't stop him, but I also want to respect his time. So let's jump right into it. Jimmy, thanks so much for being here. And also thanks to Sound Toys for sponsoring the whole presentation. Oh, big quick shout out to Sound Toys before we get into the questions. Not only do they make this free to the public, and not only did Jimmy use like a ton of their plugins, including like, I don't know how many instances of Phase Mistress. They have a big sale right now on the effects rack where it's like $100, I think down from $250. So if you want to get special sale, it's a 2-day flash sale only. You can get that at soundtoys.com. So check out anything they make for free at soundtoys.com. And if you like the stuff, you got 2 days to get a huge discount on the effects rack. It's like way less than 50% off. So, all right, Jimmy, let's dive right into it, man. Any opening words before I start reading you some questions?
Yeah, actually, I'd like to give a shout out too, actually, to the Dirty Projectors, David Longstrength, who we worked together a lot together. And then also, as well as the band, the singer, Felicia Douglas.
Yes.
That's my daughter.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Very proud of what she does and how she sounds. And I just wanted to just get that out there. And then, and as you said, a shout out to Miss Poppins as well.
Yeah, my goodness. You know, I saw that name, Douglas, and I was like, oh, it's got to be a coincidence, although it would be cool. And now you're saying it, man, she's talented. Girl can sing. Good stuff. All right. Well, let's get right into the questions. Starting off with Charles McDonald asks, do you like to have set sounds and samples, for example, kick, snare, and key presets to keep things rolling? Or do you like to find and create sounds in the moment, even if it takes time to find your favorite sound?
So to answer that question, understand one thing. I am an old school fool, and I came into this whole game a whole different way when things weren't just available. I like to kind of hunt and pick and make every one of my records different. Even though it would be easier to have a stock thing going right there, I approach every record like, you know, what's this one do? And what can I find that works with this one?
All right. Good stuff. Yeah. There were no immediate preset lists back in the day. And sometimes when you know what you're looking for, getting there is pretty fast. And I noticed that's something you do a lot. I was kind of looking at your approach and the way you think through things. And it seems like you make a decision fast and you just go for it. And it doesn't seem like there's a lot of second guessing, you know, which I have a lot of respect for. All right. Charles, next question said from 820 Beats. Oh, that's actually a comment. Type your questions into the chat down below. It looks like we have people chatting with each other, answering questions while they're waiting for us. Okay, so from Bread, thoughts on using sample delay / Haas effect to widen a sound. Does this cause issues in mono?
Wait, what was the question? I couldn't hear it.
This guy Bread asks, do you have thoughts on using sample delay or Haas effect, like really short delays to widen the sound? And does this cause issues in mono?
No, I mean, back in the day, I've done it when that's all that was available. I just try new things and I try to be quick and I try to keep moving. And what you just described, I don't know I don't know where that is or whatever it is. So I'm using the things that do the same idea, but I got there a different way.
Right. Yeah. And one of the things I love about your approach is how at times not obsessed with being technical you are. Like it's just kind of you're feeling, you're tweaking things without necessarily think, because I don't think I ever heard you say, here's how many samples or milliseconds of delay there is, that kind of thing. So I guess when you've been doing it as long as you have, there's a lot more kind of reaction that's happening. Electric Meter Room asks, Jimmy, thanks for the class. I learned a lot. When artist gives you a song to remix, is it common for them to request what type of remix they're looking for?
That's an interesting question because yeah, people will kind of tell you what they'll give you references of other records that they'd like to sound like.
Right.
And then you go in your little toolbox and you listen to it and you try to decipher what they really thought they meant when they said that.
Yeah.
You know, because like, you know, yeah, like I want to song like this record. Yeah, but your record's not even that same tempo or even the same key, or even actually it's a woman singing instead of a man. But I think it's a flavor thing they're trying to say. They want to sit in a certain vibe. I believe my interpretation is you would like to be on this playlist with that particular artist.
Right.
That's how I interpret it.
Yeah.
So
No,
let's make some elements that allow you to slip in there so nobody knows when you play one record to the other that the record actually changed, even though it actually did.
all right. Okay. Some more questions here. Accurate Beats asks, hi, Jimmy, do you ever fix sounds or usually just trying to make tracks sound better?
Interesting. I try to avoid fixing sounds. There are people that are really good at that. They spend a lot of time getting in there and just really tweaking the shit out of everything. I get bored quick. I basically have a theory about mixing, and this is sometimes when it works with me and sometimes it doesn't work with me and the artist. Sometimes it works with me if I can sell it to them, which is pretty much when you do a record or whatever you're doing, a piece of music, people, they'll either get it or they won't.
Mm-hmm.
And all that detail that they're going through, I say that 90% of the time, that's not going to make them love that record any more or less. Not saying that I don't do the work. Don't misunderstand me. But
Right.
if you notice how I was doing that whole thing, it was all just basically moving down vibe. And there was, you know, there's a lot of little imperfections in there, but I was like, I just kind of ignore those for the bigger reward.
Right. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. All right. A couple more, just some comments in here as well. People saying the song and Felicia's voice were pure fire. So it's always good to hear about your daughter. Pedro Piladic, I hope I'm saying it correctly, Pedro. Let me know. What level do you recommend to record vocals? And is it okay to record vocals without any compression or EQ?
The answer to that question is it's okay to do whatever you want to do that sounds good. And I am not joking. I mean, this is how I got here. You know, not knowing the rules, not knowing the laws, and just basically finding my way through it. You know, I didn't use compressors for many, many years on records because I didn't know how to use them.
Yeah.
You know,
I get it. You know, you're not alone. There's so many greats who, you know, I remember talking to Michael Brower and him saying something along the lines of the first 5-6 years he was in the studio, he didn't even really know what compression sounded like. You know, it's not the first thing that people figure out. And, you know, a lot of people get very precious about their audio. Am I supposed to do this? Am I supposed to do that? And that guideline of doing what sounds good, you know, is at a certain point, you got to get bold and you got to make mistakes. Because how do you learn to hear compression? You learn to hear compression by using compressors a lot, messing stuff up with compressors a lot, making them sound worse. Sometimes you got to be bold. You got to try things and you got to follow, you know, where your ear takes you to end up learning this stuff, I guess.
well, you know, should I do this and should I do that is basically only useful if you're trying to copy something. If you're
Right.
trying to copy a vibe or some particular record and you want it to sound like that, then there's certain things that you should do. If you have no particular filter out there and you're just trying to create something that feels that just feels and just moves you, there's nothing you can do wrong. You know, and having that attitude will end up having you do stuff that you're going to fall into some ditches that are just like, whoa, never knew this was here. And you know, mistakes, when I say, you know, you don't sit around and wait for mistakes, obviously, but allowing mistakes to happen in a record and not being so rigid is how you'll get creativity and get specialness.
Yeah.
Or I have found that. I'm not saying, you know, once again, everybody's different. The whole
It
process.
also has how you put out records so you can have a career. Because a lot of people who get started in this, you know, they're not putting out records because they're waiting for them to be perfect. And if you're waiting for your music to be perfect to release it, you're never going to release music and you're never going to have a career. All right, let's get some other questions. I feel like we could riff on this one question for ages, but Ames Audio asks, Jimmy, a few words about Ableton would be nice. When did you start using it and what are the limitations of it in your workflow? Greetings, you legend, and greetings and thank you, Justin.
So I've been using Ableton for, if I can make it a little bit of a long story.
Please.
Um, I back in like 2004. I mean, I'm talking. I went to, like, I'm in Miami. I live in Miami, and they had the beginnings of the Winter Music Conferences and so forth. And I went to one of these things, and I saw uh, Ableton, and I'm talking. I don't know what version. I'm talking way back, maybe about, I don't, version 3, 4, whatever. And I remember
Mhm.
I went over there and I saw it, and I was like, this is different. Now, it was a DJ kind of a gathering, but I was like, this is different. So I had a songwriting partner, a songwriting and production partner. His name is Zil Factor.
Yep.
And he was using, what the heck is the name of that? He was using a DAW. And we were working together, and I came back and said, listen, you got to try this thing. I don't know what it does. I couldn't figure how it worked because it was a new technology with the second page and the first page and the thing and the clips and the whole thing was just very interesting. I said, just figure this out so we can use this. He disappeared for like 4 months, didn't
Mm.
come back, came back, and he said, I'm never using anything else again. So between the both of us, I'm doing a lot of mixing, regular Pro Tools. I'm remaining with this craft, and I picked it up from there. And I've been kind of using it ever since. And now the rest of the world is coming around to the different DAWs, and the quickness and so forth. So now, I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that, but it's been around me all this time.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right. Oh, and the question for you was also, when you're using it, not only when did you start using it, but why don't you just completely finish the mix in Ableton? He asked, what are some of the limitations of it for your workflow? Why did you
Oh,
end up switching to Pro Tools?
no. In this particular case, actually behind me, you can't see it. I have outboard gear, and I
Yep.
have things that I like to use in my mixes. So the way that the Ableton DAW is set up, if you notice, I have my Pro Tools outputs. I
Mhm.
have separate outputs for certain inserts and stuff. I haven't figured out a way to get them back into my Ableton, so it's
Mhm.
easier just to export it. And then also, just to be straight, Ableton has a certain sound, and it sounds great. Like, all DAWs have a different sound to them.
Mm.
You can debate that all day, but they do. That's kind of why you use them. They have, I got a little fruity. Things gonna sound a certain way.
Mhm.
I got a little Logic. It's going to sound a certain way. Pro Tools a certain way. Pro Tools to me is a little open. So now I can also open it up when I go into the Pro Tools. I'm now in a different soundscape, and I think
Mm.
it's a little, for me, it just feels a little wider. It feels like it has a little more headroom for my money.
Interesting.
Could
All
be
right.
wrong, could be a debate, but that's how I think about it. And
Yeah.
so while I'm there, I use some of my outboard toys to actually tickle it again. And that's why I went through that whole thing to go from one DAW to the other.
Sweet. All right.
And that
Um,
inspired me, by the way, that inspired me to want to make that new mix because I was already over there and I was like, oh, hang on.
yeah. All right. Next question here from Hendrix Valera. He asks, Jimmy, how do you come up with such creative ideas to enhance the mix? Using things like a decapitator on the hi-hat seems uncommon to me.
Well,
This is the question. I'm just reading them. I don't make them all.
no. It's a great,
Good
it's a
one.
great question. I was laughing. It's a great question because I don't know the answer.
Right?
The answer is, like I said earlier, there are no rules. I just grab stuff. There's so many plugins and there's so many toys, and if you have like a lot of people working around you that knows all this stuff, they'll bring the information into the hive to you.
Mm.
They're making stuff so fast, so quick. And I'm always working. I don't have time to sit around and just like figure out what's where and who's doing what. So these are all tools. They don't have to be used the same way for everybody. And many times I grab the first one I get my hands on.
Mm.
And in terms of the sound toys, I go to them. They're like a go-to because they're reliable. They have their stuff. I know I'm going to get a certain amount of kind of leeway out of them. So that
Mhm.
could be one of the answers.
Yeah. And I think one of the big things about creativity is fearlessness. And it's so great to see how little you seem to second guess yourself when you're working and, how you just try things and say, does it sound better or not? And if you can develop that mindset, you get creative too. If you can just say, hey, we're going to try it, see if it sounds better. Right. Because I mean, that seems to be your attitude. It keeps coming back up for me.
Well, that's the attitude that, like, first of all, living on tape is part of. I still haven't let that go. If you notice the way that I mix with the in and the out thing, I
Hmm.
still think of it as a tape machine.
Yeah.
And in living on tape, it's now. And then you make these decisions now because you don't have a lot of tracks, and sometimes you make the wrong decision, and everything you've done for the whole period is gone.
Right.
So you learn to really think to yourself, do I really need to be doing all this, or have I gotten the point over? Let's move on to some other place. There was a time studio time costed money, and you had
Right.
to pay for it. So you had to make decisions like, should we be doing this all day long? Because is it really going to make a difference? We'll waste all our money there.
Yeah.
Now you have the box, and you can be there. You can go. You open it up every day. You can open up every day for the next year, like you said, till you get it perfect.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Just because you can open a mix 80 times doesn't mean you should. And your time is still, they say time is money, and like your time is still money. If you're not paying a separate studio by the hour or whatever, you could be doing another project, helping other people, realize their
Absolutely.
vision, getting on
Also,
to the
your
next
mind,
thing.
your mind also, one of the things too about, this process is your mind gets stale on things. And the more you see it,
Mm.
the more you start second guessing yourself because, you know too much. You're going too deep into the well sometimes. I'm not saying you don't always do that. I'm not saying that one can't spend that kind of time. But in general, if you're looking for all that stuff, well, maybe it's easier just to start again.
Right. Yeah, no, I get you. You're preaching the choir on a lot of this stuff here. All right, let's see how many more questions we can get through here. A lot of good ones coming in. The poet says, "Hey Jimmy, thanks for the gems. What level do you print tracks at when you deliver them for mastering?"
So that's a very interesting thing. What I do is when I print my mixes and I send them to the A&R people or even the groups and stuff, I don't really look at the level. It really goes into the red, and it shouldn't, because I know it's bad and it's distorted. I still think it's analog. It's not. I get it. I know it's clipping, but that's a certain sound that it has when I've done the mix. And many times they love it like that. Instead of putting an L2 or something, I just let it be you know, oversaturated. Um, and then everybody approves and I go to send it to mastering, I actually usually lower it about 4 dB to
Mm-hmm.
give the mastering engineer some headroom so he can do his thing, because otherwise he can't do anything.
Right. Okay. All right. Let's keep on going through. I just lost where I was in the questions. Give me 1 second here. Here we are. All right. This is a good one from Melissa Palachat, I think. I hope I'm saying it right, Melissa. How do you know when a mix is finished? How do you feel when it's time to put it away?
Um, when a mix is done, when you decide there's really nothing more I can do, I can't think of anything else. And I'm kind of satisfied with most of the parts as they go by. There's very little like, oh, more or less. And by the way, everybody say hello to Ms. Poppins. That is Miss Poppins.
Oh, all right. Hey, Ms. Poppins. All right. Good to have you here in the chat. Thanks so much for letting us take a look at this remix. Good stuff. So a quick question. I want to piggyback on that. Do you ever try to give yourself like a time frame in which to complete a mix? Do you have something like that where like, hey, I want to get this done by lunch, or I try to do it in a 4-hour window or anything like that? Do you put parameters around it to help kind of constrain you and make some of those decisions quickly?
I usually don't, but then when I start having problems with the mix and I'm going a little too long,
Mm-hmm.
I go back into my old days. Because when I was a kid and I was doing this stuff, we would do mixes like that,
Mm-hmm.
because you just did. And I can't even say anything more about it than that. It's like you did it, you were done, and you went on to the next thing. I can't quite do it that way anymore. But every now and then, if I'm having problems with the mix, I'll go before I go and I go, okay, I'm not spending more than 3 or 4 hours on this today. I'm not spending more than 5 hours. I'm going to be done by 6 o'clock. I do that. Whether it happens or not, it's just something to do. So,
All right. Fair enough. All right. On to the next one. This is Pop Police, I think. I saw you were still using Melodyne 4. Have you tried the new Melodyne version 5 as well? Any thoughts on the new features that are in there?
well, okay. So here's the deal on that. When you're kind of working every day and you're always doing stuff and you don't have a team to be re-putting all your stuff in their machines and the new versions and all this other stuff, it really slows you down. Sometimes you put something in and because you don't have the right operating system or whatever, it crashes you out and I lose a day and da 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 da. So like, I'm sure 5 is great. I'm sure it's amazing.
Mhm.
But even if you notice how I use this particular one, I didn't really tune anything. I was just running through it. I really don't. So I'm just saying I haven't run into any situation where 4 has failed me yet.
Right.
And I'm not looking for something out of it to make my record something else. I mean, but I will. Thank you for the advice. And I'm gonna by when you come back tomorrow, I'll have it up.
All right. And Jimmy, I got to say though, you're not alone. There's so many, tremendous top level producers, engineers, mixers who I've met where they stay on an older version of an operating system, an older version of a DAW for like, years because it's a finely oiled machine. They've got work to do. They can't afford to take away from projects for days or weeks on end to make sure that every new piece of software works and all that stuff. So there's a lot of people working at a very high level, just like you, who, stay slightly behind on some of this stuff and then are inspired to upgrade all at once,
Thank you. I'd like to be slightly behind.
Yes. Why mean you're not? Well, better that you stay on top when it comes to music than stay on top when it comes to the technology, right? Because I mean, for example, you're using some of those Sound Toys plugins. Phase Mistress, that's been around for years.
Yes.
You don't need to replace it with a new Phase Mistress, every other week to get good sounds. It's like you find things that really work, and the thing that you stay on top of is the music and where the aesthetics are. And then when there's like a break in the workflow, now it's time. All right, we'll upgrade the operating system. I'm gonna do this once a year. I'm not gonna do this every month.
That's right. Or when they're plugins that come out that aren't what's already there, when they're actually like an update, it'll help fix some of the fixes that people have problems with. But in general, if I'm not having problems, I'm not really, I've already found a workaround in general. Yeah. That's pretty much how I think. I think of it like, once again, old school, old days. You got a big console, you got broken faders, you got this and that and the other. You find workarounds because you want to keep on working. Because once you stop working, the whole process, you defeat the whole process of the mix.
Yeah. Well, here's a fun one from Steven Ramos, who asks, what's a plugin that you use in a way that it wasn't meant for? I think Melodyne is one of them where we heard you just use it for the tone, but anything else that comes to mind for you, a plugin you use in a way that it wasn't meant for?
No. By the way, in case Melodyne, I use Melodyne to tune people's vocals all the time. Felicia just didn't need it. No, I mean, she does.
You raised her right, Jimmy. You raised her right.
Wait, what did I use a plugin for? What did he say?
Is there any plugin you can think of that you use in a way it wasn't meant for?
I mean, I'd have to do it. I can't think offhand because, you grab a plugin and you do something, you go, oops, and it's like, oh. But the thing is about plugins.
So potentially all of them.
Yeah, because you know what? They've all got knobs and they all move. And so you can do whatever you want with them. There's no way not to use them. And that's interesting.
There's no wrong way to eat a Reese's. There's no wrong way to use a plugin.
There's no wrong way to use a plugin.
All right. Let's keep on going here. All right. I can't pronounce your name because it is written in, I don't even know. I apologize. An Eastern European font that I'm not familiar with, I think, but it says, hello, Mr. Douglas. Why haven't you used the mid-side technique in this mix? It's an interesting question. Do you ever, let me rephrase the question. Do you ever use mid-side processing? And if so, what for?
So for this person, whoever they are, I'm listening, I'm going, why would I use what I didn't want to use? Mm-hmm. I didn't think about using it, but then I think about the people that learn all about this. And then that's that thing where like, you're supposed to, and it's like, no, back in the day when I had a real console, real microphones, real bands and everything, I didn't like using it then.
Right.
And it was available to me and I would try it every now and then because I learned it from Eddie Kramer. I mean, but not from a plugin, from Eddie Kramer.
Actually doing mid-side technique with real microphones.
And I was like, I do it when he was, and I was like, doesn't rock my boat. Mm-hmm. So I'm entitled to my opinion about what I want and what I don't want. And that was an interesting question because every time I try to do it, because people say you should, I'm not getting it. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I hear you. Fair enough. All right. I would say you don't have to use every single trick in the box, just because all the tricks are in the box, you can pick and choose the tricks. Even if you like a lot of different tricks, you don't have to use every single trick on every single track.
But it's sure fun when you can do it.
Yeah, it's a true story. I would say that in mastering, I definitely use mid-side processing because sometimes you want to compress the sides or EQ the sides differently from the center, and you only have 2 tracks to work with. But in mixing, I think it becomes less relevant because you have all of the tracks there. And if you want to make things sound wider, or you got the pan, you want things the center to come up, you bring up the stuff that's supposed to be in the center. So I think it's less relevant in mixing than mastering.
I'll be interested. But what's interesting when you just mentioned that? Mm-hmm. The mid-side thing, back when I was doing drums, I literally would just move the microphones out more to the side of the room.
Right.
That's how I was growing up. That's how I was taught, so.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. All right, let's keep on going through here. This guy, Electric Meter Room, says, I have been a Duran Duran fan since 1980. Any thoughts or comments about working with them and their music would be awesome. Any quick story about working with Duran Duran?
Oh yeah, no, I had a great time working with them, and like when they were my idols too, because when they came out in the '80s with that stuff, it was crazy. I mean,
Mhm.
they were the penultimate vision of the English rock and roll band,
Right.
the resurrection of, and they're just good. They're good people and they're great musicians. And Simon, Simon Laban is his voice is just it's that voice. When I was working him, every time I'd just be sitting there watching him on the mic, going, "It's fucking Simon
Yeah.
Laban," you know.
Mhm.
And John, it was just great. There's no real stories, I mean, that we can tell here, but yeah.
All right. Here's another one question from the poet is who asks, is there a time when you were working with an artist or mixing a record that you can think of where something went wrong and you really learned from it?
I don't know if I learned from it, but a lot of things went wrong. Are you kidding me? I mean, are you kidding me? That's like,
Mhm.
that's how you, I mean,
Why do
maybe,
you think Jimmy doesn't upgrade his operating system every single week?
no, I mean, no, I thought you were talking about the real time when things could go wrong.
Yeah.
Real. I'm talking
Oh,
about
anywhere from, from 1970, whatever, until today, if there's any, they're looking for, I guess, stories where something went wrong and started to do something differently because of something that went wrong in the studio, I guess.
well, that's interesting.
Hard one to put on the spot. You got to give a guy some prep time for that. Go back over, 40, 50
No,
years.
I'm
Make a
sure.
record and say, which one do I pick?
Well, no, I mean, I'm sure that there's been things that have done whatever, but I was always pretty, here's the thing. This is really interesting too. In the days of analog, when tape was God, and if you fucked up on tape, it was done and you had to leave. You're done. You might as well leave the room. You're
Mhm.
fired. That's it.
Yeah.
That's how it worked back then. Doesn't work that way anymore. Nobody's held responsible for fucking up.
Mhm.
Back then, you were, because it was money that somebody paid for. Background singers, musicians, whatever. People were paying for this. When you fucked up on the tape, you just fucked up their money.
Mhm.
So you didn't do it. That's all. You didn't do it. Okay. And so now, a question like that is like, in the digital world, people do all kinds of crazy stuff and nobody cares. I mean, because everything is retractable. You punch in the wrong place, guess what? You peel it back. Hey, no big deal. So I mean, my whole head about that whole thing is I don't think I've really done anything. I mean, I'm sure I've done other things. I've done um mental things and I've done attitude things. Yes, I've
Mhm.
been guilty of that. But in terms of my craft, I don't think I've ever been guilty of any of that.
All right. All right. Fair enough. Now, I know we're up at 4:30 right now. Do you have time for any more questions? How are you feeling on time? Because I
Well,
want to
I'm
let you go if you've got.
a few minutes.
All right, maybe we'll try to go for this is fun. We got a ton of questions here. Maybe we'll try to go for another 10 minutes or so and see how you're feeling and see how things go. Um, okay, another one here. Your the hip hop mixing video you did with oh no, it's not a question, it's just a comment. He said he loves a hip hop mixing video you did that's online already. Another person says, "Oh, Michael Mall asks of all the prominent artists you've worked with, is there anyone that you would think is an underrated talent who isn't appreciated as much as they should be?"
Ooh, that's tough. That's tough.
Mhm.
I can spit out a new act that's about to come out that maybe you
Sure,
can
please.
check out. His name is Q.
Q. How do you spell it? Is it just the letter Q or is it?
Letter Q.
All right.
He's on Columbia. He should be coming out. I think the record should be coming out this week or within the month.
Mhm.
And he's a unique little talent. He's a little different.
Mm.
We can't rate him yet because he's not out. So we don't know. I know that he's very talented.
Right.
He can do many things.
All right. Not yet rated. So we'll have to find out if he's going to be underrated or if he's going to be rated appropriately. All right. Let's keep on going through here. Um, let's see. Find another good one here. Jimmy, do you have a favorite piece of outboard gear in your studio?
I I do. And by the way, I'm going to take this moment to talk about one of them was and is the Better Maker,
All right. Yeah.
which I did use and I showed on the thing.
Hmm.
So the Better Maker is an analog piece of gear that you can see digitally on the screen and you can control it digitally, which is why I use it when I do recalls and mixes. It pops up right away. I leave it patched in all the time, so I'm already in sync. Apparently, they have just now come out with a digital version of that.
Mm-hmm.
Plugin Alliance, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
has it.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to try it out, and I got to say, uh, the big boy that I have in the house, he may not be my total favorite anymore, but he's still going to be my favorite. He did a pretty good job, but the difference is I can now put the better maker on my stuff, and I can mix on the plane, I can mix on the bus. If I'm doing, immersive audio, I can put it in a lot of channels because it's only 2 channel box, the one that I have.
Mm-hmm.
So that was and is that's the one I use a lot of, actually.
Good stuff. All right. Another one here. Do you mix into a limiter? And do you have any other habits to help avoid distortion in your mixes?
I don't mix into a limiter, but I will mix. Well, as you saw, and when I showed you the mixing, my master has various things on it, like this. I think today I was using the isotope, and then I decided to take it off at the end. But I was mixing through it because I always mix through whatever I'm going to be putting on the master, so that every change I make is relating to the piece of gear on it. I don't mix and then throw the better maker on later, or throw the isotope on later. I have it there from the beginning, because every little move you make inside is relative to how that thing's going to react.
Mm-hmm. I like it. Paul Cook, this is a pretty open-ended question, but he asks, can you talk about using side chains? There's definitely some side chaining going on in here. Can you talk about your approach? When would you use side chains? How do you think about their purpose and all that?
Well, the side chaining in that particular record was actually done by Ms. Poppins, had that trigger.
Mm-hmm.
So she initiated it, basically, and I just followed along. I went to her tracks and made it less or more, to pump even more or more or less. I personally, and while I know we've had an era of sidechain where people are, you use it to pump things and so forth, I find other ways of getting the sound out, different EQs, different limiters, even level bumps and so forth. That's just what I do. And if you notice also, I showed you the sidechain, how I took some of it off to have other tracks of the same idea without the sidechain, so I could blend them better. So it wasn't just like, it was more like, it had a little shape to it, a little flavor. You know what I'm saying? I'm not, one of the ways I used to use sidechain before EDM came and just claimed it was I would do it to like get rid of unwanted things in the way of a vocal, for instance. Like somebody played the organ, they had this whole thing, and the guy's singing. Every time he sings, I can't hear because the organ's gone. So I would just feed him with the vocal, and that way it would calm down when the vocal came. So it was helping me work to keep the vocal where I wanted. That's really how I came about sidechain for myself.
All right, good stuff. Perfectly Orchestrated asks, I'm a huge fan of Timbaland, Missy, and Debasement and the Super Friends artists. Can you talk about your experience working with them and what the creative process was like working with Timbaland and Missy and all them?
Well, that was nuts at best. No, it was actually pretty, there was a great experience, and it actually took all the players that were involved to make it work in terms of, here's a guy who's done Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, Genesis, and so forth. And I've had a career, with funk bands and everything, and doing all this music. And I really kind of had nothing. The first thing was I had nothing to prove. And I don't mean that in an egotistical way. It's like I was there to get the job done. But, many people come in like, I'm going to show you how to do them. And they're really anxious, and they kind of become against the process because they're so busy trying to show you what they can do. That
Mm-hmm.
wasn't my purpose. My thing was like, there was all that talent up there, and we were just trying to get this stuff put down to, daily. And there I was, and everybody, I knew more than everybody else, but I didn't go, I know more than you. It was just like, we just got it done. Everybody let me do what I do. I let them do what they did. If they wanted to yell on the microphone and use it improperly, I'd let them,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And then this story I've told many times. One of the things about me and Timberland, which was interesting, we were using tape. That's what was available. Well, there was some digital was coming in, but we were using tape. And one of the things about tape, it's that same question I heard before. What's the level you should do? I never learned the level I should do. And I kind of knew what I was doing from just osmosis. I learned to feel how printing on tape should be, even if they went into the red sometimes. And with Tim, we were doing stuff. And sometimes we was doing so much stuff, the kick would just like slam the freak out of the tape. And then he'd be like, the thing is, he didn't care. He didn't say, oh, that's red. Let's go back and No, he was just like, what, you ready for the next part? I'm like, yeah. So part of our sound became that tape compression
Mhm.
on all the stuff that we put through the tape, all the instruments that we, free limiting basically.
All right. Dig it. Okay, I want to see. I really want to let you go here because I know you're a super busy guy. You've been super generous with your time. Maybe 5 more minutes. We can get through a few more, like 2 or 3 more of the. I think some of the best questions in here. Nicholas Jaramillo asks, this is a fun question. What would be the best advice that you would have liked to receive when you were first starting out in the studio? What's the advice that you wish you had gotten when you were in the beginning of your career that I guess stuff you didn't figure out till later?
I got it. I got the advice,
All
and
right.
that was do not fuck up. That was really at Atlantic Records. It was that simple. It's like, we're gonna throw you. It wasn't even, they didn't even tell you. It was just like, oh, this is happening. You're gonna go in and do it? And it's like the answer is always yes.
Mm-hmm.
They don't say, can you do it? They go, this is what's happening. Go in there and do that. Yes. And then you can't fuck up. And that's pretty much how simple it wasn't that simple, but that's pretty much that was the basic advice.
All right, good stuff. I like it. Here's one from Mario So de Jesus, I think. Not a gear question, but how do you explain the importance of a mixing engineer to a younger generation of artists and producers?
Interesting. That's a good question. Hi, Mariosa. How you doing, man? So the thing is, the art of the mix has changed so much since having, hardware, audio, analog into digital, into every little body and their brother having the same tools. That we all have the same tools now, you know. Um, for a couple of grand, you can have all the tools you need, and you can go online and you can read about how to use every one of these pieces of thing. So what is a mix engineer? I mean, nowadays the producer should be able to mix pretty much their stuff. There's no reason they shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
What do you need an engineer for? Well, it's somebody to take care of the stuff that you don't want to be having to take care of while you're busy trying to think about the parts you're creating and so forth and so on. And a mix engineer, I don't know how to explain it really, because it's somebody, good question. It's somebody that can actually come in and have oversight over all those things that you've been doing, and you can't figure out where they belong and how they should look, and where they, if you think about it this way, think about you making a suit, and you cut all the parts you think you have, but you have more parts than you really need. You have more colors than you need, but yet you want that suit. So you bring in a master tailor who goes, I know what you should do with these parts, and you put them all together, and you go, oh my God, you had the right idea. You just didn't know how to finish it off. That's weird. That was weird, but that's the best I can do today. Sorry.
All right. This is maybe this is the good question to end on here. Well, 2 more. One, here's the second to last question, and then I'll give you the last question. Second to last question is, how many monitors do you use and when do you switch between them?
I kind of lately, I'm kind of lately down to one set of monitors. And if not, I'll be using two, and I'll use like a really small near field,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll just have a bass. I have those huge Osbergers up there. Haven't really used them a lot lately because nobody's kind of listening to music like that.
Mm.
It's a new world. I mean, you do in a club, and I bang this for the club, but in general, people are listening here. Look at that. There's
Yeah.
my monitors.
Yeah.
So I will mix and so forth, and I'll just listen to it and play back through the phone and see if I can hear everything I need to hear. See if the mix is if it's relating, all the parts are coming through.
Fair enough. And I think here is a good final question for you, Jimmy. Land of Port Production Labs asks, Jimmy, but what if you do fuck up? What then? The advice is don't fuck up, but what if you do?
No, 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 no. It's a fair question, but I'm saying in the digital world, how can you fuck up?
Mm-hmm.
It's not destructible. It's not destructive.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what can you do? Well, you punch the singer in his windpipe? You know, I mean, like, what are we talking here? You can, everything is traceable, and you can go back over. The urgency is gone in the art.
Mm.
See, there's no big board up there with 50 pieces on it that you're not going to be able to go back and recall once you're done for today. Those are when I think fuck up, I think of shit like that. And
Yeah.
also, the other part of it is, as I just said, you're not spending money for this stuff. So yeah, do it again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
By the way, I do have a half of a story with Jodeci when I was, this is called Learning the New World, as I call it. When I was in Rochester with Jodeci and Missy and Timberland, all those guys, I was like, you know, I was like, oh shit, it's Jodeci. You go, and you remember we were doing analog and so forth. And Devante, the head, you know, the guy who oversaw the whole thing, producer, part of Jodeci, he had me doing vocals with Casey and JoJo. And the thing was, they would all jump on the same mic to anybody, a rapper, a singer, a she, a he, and they would just all go, you ready to record? And it's like, you couldn't do what we did back in the day, which take your time, get the sound for the individual you're coming from. That's how you got those sounds back then. Everything was tailored, the right mic for right EQ. No, they would just be like, you ready? You ready? You ready? So Casey and JoJo were doing a vocal, and Casey got on the mic and he started singing this song, and Devante said, do this vocal and send and give it to me downstairs so I can go to work on it. And he starts singing and he freaking decimated the tape and the microphone. It was so distorted, it was insane, because he was just kind of fucking around and singing, and he always, even when he fucked around, it was great. But when he got done, I said, do you think we can do that section again, man? Because it's a little distorted. He goes, nope. And he just left and went home. So I was like, oh, that's how it works now. Nobody. So yeah, no, you can't fuck up.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, man. Well, I love how you were bringing a little bit of analog urgency back into your mixes. And I love the way that you kind of went through this. And like I said, you have this, I just see you, the way that you work. You're like deciding, making a decision, doing it, moving on. Did it sound better? Yeah, go. You know, we're not backtracking so much. So I love how you bring some of that kind of speed of life activity back to this thing where people could feel chained to their laptops and, you know, like they're data entry workers or something, but you're in there feeling it, you know, moving on. And I loved it. It was really inspiring to watch you work, to see you have fun doing it, you know, just to see you actually like move when you're listening, to be cracking jokes. I'm just imagining being there in the studio with you, like a real human being, and not just people, you know, cloistered away behind their computers. So I love so much of that humanity you bring back into this art that's been there since the beginning for you. So absolutely thrilled to have you on, man. It was great class.
Do you ever use those overtones?
I do. Well, I've actually got two pairs here. Now that I'm mastering, I don't so much anymore. When I was mixing, I use these Oratones all the time. They're still my favorite speakers. I have some Ref tones over here that Ref Tone sent me. They're like the full range version of the Oratones. And then I got some Adams there. And then there's like 3 speakers on this wall. I don't shoot against my back wall anymore because the only comments I get in my videos are like, hey, dude, what speakers are those? And I get tired of answering them all the time. So, but yeah, I do. I'm a big fan. Were you an Oratone fan coming up?
Well, no, that's what we had.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't. See, that's the other thing. It wasn't fan. It was like they were Oratones, and then they came up with the NS10s.
Yeah.
Bob Clement and put some tissue over, so we all did that.
Yeah.
You know.
I've got some originals. I love them. I still recommend them as a tool to a lot of people, especially if you're in a weird bass compromised room or you're having trouble with monitoring. I mean, you make them sound good there. And if you can hear the bass and kick on these things, you're going to hear them anywhere. You know, it's just, it's
the way it is. Well, thank you very much.
And thank you, Jimmy. If people want to check out more from you, where are the best places to follow you, find you? Are you active anywhere on social media? Should they check out your website? Where are the best places to connect?
We have. So first of all, jimmydouglas.com. You can find me.
Yeah.
That's my website. 2 S's. Jimmy Douglas 2 S's .com. And then my Instagram is Senator Jimmy D.
All right. The Senator. I should have put that in your introduction. Known as the Senator. One of these days we got to hear the story of why Jimmy is called the Senator.
We are the Senator. The Senator and Senators in the House.
All right, good stuff, man. Well, thanks again to you. Thanks again to your daughter for letting us use that vocal track. Thanks to Dirty Projectors for letting us use that track. Big thanks to Sound Toys. I caught wind that the Sound Toys stuff is on sale. It's a 2-day flash sale. Check out soundtoys.com. You can get the whole effects rack. I think it's on sale for $100, down from $250. So definitely check that out. Sound Toys. Get anything they make for free at soundtoys.com. And if you want to buy them, there's a great sale right now. Big thanks again to Jimmy Douglas. Put your thanks to the comments in the comments down below. I got a lot of thanks coming in here. They're about 20 seconds behind us, but oh yeah. Good stuff. All right. Oh, Jimmy typing back. Hey, there's me. I'm famous. I'm on the internet now. Look at that. I liked how we had double Jimmy though for the whole Q&A. Good stuff. All right, Jimmy, this was really great questions, really great answers. Thank you guys for joining us. Check out the main presentation. I left a link there down below. If you haven't seen the whole thing, there's where you check it out. Jimmy, this was absolutely killer. We got to do something like it again sometime. Thanks again for being here on the Sonic Scoop channel.
Peace.
All right, this has been Justin Coletti of Sonic Scoop. See you guys next time.